Justin Verlander gets his first win. It's almost comical because it's July 23rd. Devers homers 2 times. The San Francisco Giants are back.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. On YouTube, we're nearing 10,000 subscribers. A lot of you listening are not subscribed. Very easy to do. Please help us out. Click that button. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And coming up on today's show, we're going to break down the Giants winning the series in Atlanta, Justin Verlander winning the game. Finally, he picks up that win, July 23rd. Unbelievable. How about Rafael Devers getting it going at the plate? The first homer he hit today was just unbelievable. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm going to describe it for you. And then the second one was just a, blast. So Devers is heating up. What does that mean for the Giants? And then that long-promised draft analysis and also a trade rumor involving the San Francisco Giants. Before we jump into it, I just quickly want to let you know that, yes, surprisingly, I will be wrapping up my time as the host of Locked On Giants next Friday, August 1st. It has been an incredible nearly 6.5 years. I've loved sharing this journey with all of you. All I can say is if you want to stay connected and hear what's next for me in the Giants world, just follow me on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. I'll be posting updates there as I get ready to launch something new. I've got something new and exciting on the horizon, and Twitter is where you'll hear about it first. With that being said, Justin Verlander and the Giants pick up the win. I swear, like I say this every time, but he's the only player in the major leagues who I would even be talking at all about wins and losses. And how about this? All Justin Verlander needed in order to pitch, well and get that first elusive win was for me to say last time he pitched that the Giants needed to DFA him. And then I looked closer at the peripheral numbers and I was like, well, like if you look at on Fangraphs, you can see rolling, fielding independent pitching, like 5-game rolling, fielding independent pitching. It was 309 coming into today. The home run rate was down. The strikeout rate was also kind of down. I don't know. The walk rate was very much down. But with this outing today, it actually doesn't look so pretty on paper. When you look at like underlying metric type stuff, he had 5 walks in 5 innings, but he only allowed 1 hit. So, the underlying metrics being things like walks and strikeouts. So he had 3 strikeouts against 5 walks. That's generally not going to do it. He couldn't really put people away, but made big pitches when he had to, worked in and out of trouble all game, went 5 innings, which you need to do to qualify for that win, and they were 5 shutout innings. So the Giants ended up blowing out the Braves again after getting humiliated in game 1 of the series. The Giants losing in a very sloppy and ugly 9-5 loss. Although I'm sure the Braves are saying the same thing about their own play in the last 2 games, with the Giants scoring 9 runs each time and the Braves scoring a total of 3 runs, all coming today, all against Sean Jelly. in the final 2 games of the series. And so with the win, the Giants, well, we've got first some quotes actually from the clubhouse. Justin Verlander said, "A couple of the guys got me a nice bottle of wine as a congrats, which feels great. So I'll probably have a little bit of that. I'm happy to be able to contribute finally." So it's nice to hear him kind of put the onus on himself and not to blame his teammates for his record, because look, the reason it matters is because he was chasing 300 wins. It's almost like this season alone and how this first half has gone has all but taken away that possibility. Like when I look at it, he's now at 263. And I mean, I would be shocked if he's back on the Giants next year, given how this year is going. But that's a long way to go. We'll see how the next 2+ months go. But yeah, I mean, this huge drought has definitely made it very unlikely to me that he's ever going to get there. So Verlander said, "Sometimes when things are going well, you take things for granted. And sometimes you go out there and pitch every 5 days and you're winning most of them and you're in the high 5 line afterwards. It's been a tough stretch physically and on the mound. Hopefully this can get the ball rolling in the right direction." And he said that, his first inning, I didn't realize he threw 40 pitches in the first, and he said it's not ideal. You come into a game and it's hot and humid. You kind of want to have quick innings. Yeah, but the way he battled back was obviously great. So Bob Melvin had this to say. He said, "We know every time he goes out there, guys try extra hard for whatever reason. It just hasn't worked out. For him to be able to get through 5 after throwing 40 pitches in the first inning, there's some toughness involved in that. There's a lot of heat out there. He knows the bullpen wise we're beat up too. To get through the first inning was huge for him." And then anyway, there's a lot more we can say, but so congratulations to Justin Verlander. One of his 263 wins now is in a Giants uniform. I'm sure he's deep down frustrated. They've had a couple of blown saves in the 9th inning. Ryan Walker, personally, a couple times blew games where he was in line for the win. But what's more important is that the team won and that they won this series, which I called a must-win series. And so they played their worst game of the year in game 1. Arguably, and then they come back and respond with 2 of their best games of the year. It was 9-0 in both games at various points. Today ended up being 9-3, but it was the Giants are scoring some runs. They're averaging now 7.25 runs per game over their last 4, and they're 2-2 despite averaging 7.25 runs per game. So they're coming home. You obviously expect the offense is not going to be able to continue at this pace, but guys like Devers getting hot at the plate and Adames staying hot at the plate, Casey Schmidt getting hot again at the plate, Matt Chapman being healthy, although he got drilled in the elbow by a pitch. You can start to squint and see that maybe things could turn around, and it's going to be a crucial stretch of games coming up. Now the Giants have an off day on Thursday, tomorrow, and then they've got 6 games left. It's a 6-game homestand before the trade deadline. And that's why I feel like this was such a critical series. If you went and got swept by the Braves and fell however many games back they would have been, it would be hard to justify adding to this team. But it continues. You can't let up. They play the Mets next, and the Mets have won 4 straight. They're 59-44, and the Giants trail them in the standings by 5 games in the wild card race. But the Padres just lost 2 in a row to the Marlins, I believe it was. Yeah. They lost 3-2 today, and they lost yesterday as well to the Marlins. So with the Giants winning 2 in a row, they're now just a game and a half back of San Diego, and they've passed them in the run differential department. So every game counts at this time of year. So coming up in just a minute, we'll look at how does this affect their playoff odds, and we'll talk about Rafael Devers and what he was able to do. I was just amazed by the first home run he hit, the way he hit it, and then just a blast his next time. And he had another hit. He was on fire. We'll get into it in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. For me, having all of my bank accounts and credit cards and investments scattered all over the place, those were dark times. But to have them all together where I can see how everything's coming along and how it translates to net worth and just everything, spending habits, budgeting, game changing. So take control of your finances like I did with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, as promised, we're going to get into where we left off, which is the Giants' record, picking up a couple games in the standings. We'll check on some of the other teams in this wild card race. This time of year, it just really matters what your position is as the trade deadline comes, which is going to be a week from Friday. So just 6 games for the Giants, 3 against the Mets, 3 against the Pirates, and Rafael Devers being hot, which he hadn't been really this whole time since they acquired him a month ago or so, is a big deal. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. I think I just said that, but we're going to, get into Devers and the standings and all of that. So looking at it's scoreboard watching season, in my opinion. So the Phillies are a team that you kind of figured you aren't going to catch, and they're up 3-0 in the first at the time of this recording. The Reds won, and that's not ideal for the Giants. They are 1 game back of the Giants. The Padres losing was huge. The Mets winning was not ideal, but not the worst thing. The Cardinals losing to the Rockies 6-0 in Denver. The Cardinals have fallen on tough times, and the D-backs losing a 1-run game at home to Houston, the Brewers winning, and the Dodgers winning. So the Cardinals falling off here has been really good for the Giants and the D-backs, and then the Giants just pushed the Braves down even further. So that's all good. The Reds just 1 back of the Giants. The Giants just 1.5 back of San Diego, and San Diego now goes to St. Louis. So one of them's going to lose, and the Giants are quite far out of that first wild card spot, which they held not long ago. They're 6.5 out of that, and that would be the only way, either that or winning the division and having one of the best 2 records as a division winner. That would be the only way to host the wild card round. Actually, I said that wrong. If you have the 3rd best record, you would host the wild card round. If you have one of the top 2 division winning records, you get to skip the wild card round. So that's a very important distinction, obviously. But the Giants are 6 back of the Dodgers. Dodgers with a walk-off win, unfortunately. But let's look at the playoff odds, because not long ago, like 2 days ago, after their first loss in Atlanta, those odds were down to like 22% when I was looking. And now they are at, according to Fangraphs, 37%. And so, that might seem like, oh yeah, well, it's more likely than not that they won't make it. And of course, this is just a projection. But, think about a player who has the exact number here is 36.7%. if you have a batter who has a 367 on base percentage, I was going to say batting average, but it's kind of imperfect in some ways, but 367 on base is very robust. And so is it ever shocking when a player with a really good on base percentage gets on base? Of course not. And so if those are your odds, given how they've had some really difficult stretches this season, that's not the worst thing in the world. So that's Fangraphs. ATC, another projection system featured on Fangraphs, has them at 40.3%. The Bat X, another projection system featured on Fangraphs, 45.8%. And so now we're talking 37 to 46%. So these games swing these playoff odds rather dramatically. Like if you had been swept, as I said, you could be down like 10% at this point. And so huge swings one way or the other. And it's not going to be easy with the New York Mets coming into town. That is a good team. It's a 3-game series and then 3 against the Pirates. But one thing that could help them out is if Rafael Devers is in fact heating up, which he undoubtedly is. Today he goes 3 for 5 with 2 homers, a bunt strikeout. With the Giants up like 9-3 when he was going for potentially his 3rd home run of the game. Like I have no idea what he was doing there, but his first home run, if you didn't see it, let me tell you, he just flicked the bat at the ball. And this ball left the ballpark. Like there was no lower body in this swing. He was like off balance and he just flicked his wrists at the ball and it jumped off his bat. It wasn't super hard hit. In fact, it didn't even classify as hard hit. I think it was like 93 miles an hour off the bat, but it left the yard in Atlanta and that was a home run for Devers. And then he, in his first at bat, hit a rocket single that was I think, second hardest hit ball of the year for the Giants, and I believe the hardest hit ball of his season. So, as we've been saying, the at bat quality has just looked much better. And when you start to see that, you just start to see it build, and all of a sudden you're getting just consistently really high quality at bats and now results. And so that's just huge because they acquired him to be a difference maker and he wasn't until basically the second half started. And even in Toronto, the results weren't actually really there, but the at bats were clearly better. And he played first base for the first time yesterday, didn't play there today. That was the plan all along, was that they were going to let him play one game there and then with the day game the next day and then an off day after that. It was always planned. And so now they're going to see after the off day tomorrow how he comes in on Friday, and potentially he's playing first base and playing first a lot. And so it affects what the Giants can do. At the trade deadline, we went into this in detail yesterday. If you'd like to hear my full thoughts on that, that was basically the main takeaway from the game for me, was the significance of Devers playing first and how it affects the 2025 roster, but also the Giants for the next 8 years. We also touched upon Bryce Eldridge on that episode, and since then, Bryce Eldridge has hit a couple of homers, like since the time of that recording, including a walk-off homer today. So Bryce Eldridge back at AAA after missing a few weeks with a hamstring strain, suddenly heating up at the plate. And so that's really nice to see. And it becomes a good problem to have. Although, I think you're probably looking at maybe a September call-up if things go really well for Eldridge. But more likely than not, this is a 2026 problem. And when I say problem, good problem, with Devers and Eldridge potentially coexisting on the same roster. I don't think they trade Bryce Eldridge just because Devers has played one game at first base. So unless there's just some amazing player that you're able to get, I feel like Eldridge is pretty much untouchable. Amazing player with team control on a good contract. Like, it would take a lot to go right in order, like, there would have to be a lot right with a player in order for them to move Bryce Eldridge. But in the here and now, it's huge that Devers is heating up, like clearly heating up. It's huge that I would say Willy Adames, but he went 0 for 4 today. But nonetheless, it's been just a torrid stretch for Adames since that off day, 2 off days, because he missed a game finally, like a day off, and then there was a scheduled off day, and then he's been on a tear ever since. And it's been well over a month at this point. And then Matt Chapman got drilled by a pitch in the elbow in today's game and looked to be in a lot of pain, had an x-ray, it was negative. Good time to have a day off tomorrow. Hopefully he ends up okay, because he is such a key to this team. And x-rays, by the way, were negative for Chapman, meaning no fracture that they could see. I'm always shocked at how often you have initial x-rays, but then there's like follow-up x-rays that turned out to show something, or there's an MRI that shows something. So hopefully there's none of that, and it's just a classic hit by pitch. It looks like it got him in the tricep, kind of like right on the back side of the elbow, and he was like shaking his hand, like it shot pain all the way through his hand, which very painful, I'm sure. But as long as he's okay, we move on. So anyway, ends up being a really nice series for the Giants after the way it started. And now we look ahead to draft analysis. So we look back, actually, and then look ahead to a trade rumor that involves the San Francisco Giants. So we'll get into those two topics in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more, who's handling this? And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. Open Phone is offering Locked On Giants listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, here we go. We're going to get into that long anticipated draft analysis that I meant to get to several days ago and then lost, but found. And we're going to begin to discuss. We'll get more into these types of things tomorrow with the Giants being off. A trade rumor. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, coming up tomorrow, we're going to be getting to more of your mailbag questions that you guys submitted like last week or the week before, and also maybe search out some new ones and discuss the trade deadline. That's going to be our key focus from here on out, is the trade deadline. So getting to this draft analysis, though, it's a little late, but I did mean to have this and then thought I did, but I didn't. So I got it now. And this is courtesy of Kylie McDaniel over at ESPN. So we spent a whole episode talking about their day 1 picks, and that was just 2 picks for the Giants. They did not have a second-round draft pick because of the Willy Adames signing and the rules around that. But according to Kylie McDaniel of ESPN, very good prospect analyst, a lot of people, every time I say ESPN says this, but I'm talking about Kylie McDaniel, they're like, ESPN is no good, but Kylie McDaniel knows what he's talking about and is a very good prospect analyst. So He gives you the best value, the quickest to the big leagues, the sleeper to watch, and one big thought from the Giants draft. So for best value, he says Reed Worley, 9th round. He's a little older for the class and a skinny 6'2" with low 90s velocity, but he's a great value because of his killer breaking ball with 3,000 RPM and multiple shapes. His lower slot helps his fastball shape a bit, so another tick or two of velocity could turn Worley into a high-level prospect. And worth noting that the Giants signed, in fact, I think all but one. Certainly they signed their most important draft picks, including Worley and their first rounder, who we'll talk about in a minute. And they signed Worley to an over-slot deal. So they got him in the 9th round, but they saved some money here and there with some picks. Like they signed their first-round pick for a little bit under the slot value of the pick, and they used the savings to apply towards Worley, who did sign. And so there you have it. And in terms of quickest to the big leagues, Kylie McDaniel says Gavin Keelin, 13th overall. He's a polished lefty hitter who raked in the SEC and can play any infield position. He was picked here, number 13, because his floor is a good utility player who will move quickly through the minors. So that's the floor, according to McDaniel. So there's a little more upside than I thought. Like I kind of went on a soapbox and talked about how the Giants played it too safe maybe in the draft, even though I don't know much about amateur players. So I'm kind of relying on what other people say. But we're going to read Keith Law's opinion about Gavin Keelin in just a minute, and it gets me a lot more excited than I was. So the sleeper to watch is Trevor Cohen, number 85 overall, and Cam Maldonado, 7th round. Cohen might need a swing adjustment / reworking, but has everyday level tools. And Maldonado is another above average athlete with a power speed combo who might work as an everyday center fielder. So Cohen was the first player not ranked by MLB.com to be drafted, and he was taken in just the 3rd round. And so you could easily view that as a reach or a stretch, but yet there's some intrigue and there's reason to like him. Like McDaniel says, he has everyday level tools and maybe just needs a swing adjustment / reworking. But similar to their first round pick, who we're going to discuss in just a second, he is someone who makes a lot of contact. And so that was definitely an approach that the Giants took in this draft. But it's not like the comp that was thrown out there and was discussed over at Fangraphs with their first round pick, Gavin Keelin, was Joe Panik. And that made me panic a little bit because although Panik was very good for like his first 2 years in the major leagues, including the first year was just a partial year, after that, it was not good. And so a lot of the downfall of Joe Panik was just a lack of any kind of extra base power. There just wasn't enough there. And there really weren't, he wasn't fast. He was a pretty good glove, but then he stopped hitting for average. He never really hit for power. And it was just like all of a sudden, there's just not a lot of value in the player. And then he fell out of Major League Baseball. So if that's the comp, it's not a great one, but some have made it. But Keith Law doesn't see it that way. He says of the Giants draft, San Francisco Giants, Gavin Keelin, an excellent first-round pick for class limited by small bonus pool. And so your bonus pool is determined by the picks that you have, and the Giants didn't have a second-round pick or a fifth-round pick because of the Willy Adames signing. Again, just the rules around that, and that he had received and rejected the qualifying offer from the Brewers. But Law says, quote, I loved the Giants' first-round pick, Tennessee infielder Gavin Keelin, who was that magic combination of, quote, hits it hard and, quote, doesn't swing and miss. He walked more than he struck out this year, whiffed on pitches in the zone just 10% of the time, and had whiff rates under 20% on all pitch types, according to data from Synergy. His hard hit rate was 51%, and he topped out at 110 miles an hour. He's on the smaller side, and some scouts questioned whether his power would hold up with wood. I think it's more likely he makes enough hard contact to hit for high batting averages and on-base percentages, and maybe ends up with solid average power, 15-ish homers a year. The Giants announced him as a shortstop, but he's going to second base. I mean, the Giants said he's going to play shortstop, so I think he means he's going to end up at second base. But, Joe Panik didn't have 15 homer a year power, and I don't know when someone like Keith Law says 15-ish homers a year, if they're factoring in that he's a left-handed hitter who figures to potentially play at Oracle Park if he comes to the major leagues. A lot has to happen for that to, although the consensus is that he's going to be a quick mover and that he has a high floor. So I'm just going to look just to prove that what I'm saying is not crazy. Joe Panik in his major league career hit 42 home runs. His career high was 10, which he reached twice. And then, towards the end of his career, he had a 142 game season in which he hit just 5. And this was like during the home run. There was a home run spike at some point in this period of time. So anyway, that's different. Although Panik had respectable on-base and batting average numbers, there just wasn't enough power. There really wasn't enough power. 536 singles, 42 homers, 136 doubles, 19 triples. Anyway, lastly, just to mention again, because we're going to get into it in more detail tomorrow, there is a report from, a Pittsburgh Pirates beat writer, Noah Hiles of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, reports that the Giants have reached out to the Pirates about Isaiah Kiner Falefa. Falefa. Why do I have a hard time saying that? I know the name, I just can't say it. Who is a second baseman. Now, do I think there's any truth to this rumor? Do I think that Kiner Falefa would drastically improve the Giants? There's obviously possibly some truth to it if you're getting this from a legitimate reporter. But is it the most exciting connection? No. Is it possibly just the Giants doing their due diligence as they kick around? Yes. And I would say the way Casey Schmidt is playing, you don't really want to take the bat out of his hands and prevent a breakout. And so maybe we're looking at a possible bench addition. Falefa is very likely to get traded because he's on a bad team and he's on an expiring contract. So he's going to get moved. It's not going to take much. And so if you want to shore up your bench, that's one possible way to do it. And so there's some intrigue there, but it's certainly not like an impact player of any sort. So we're going to get into the trade deadline in much more detail tomorrow. That is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. Just a reminder that I will only be hosting Locked On Giants for 7 more episodes after today. So if you want to stay connected and follow along with what I'm planning next, be sure to find me on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick, where I will be announcing some things. So please check me out there if you have not already. Anyway, can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.